Picture a man sitting at his own Shabbos table. The candles are lit, the challah is covered, everything looks the way that it's supposed to look. But inside, he feels like a guest who showed up uninvited. Not a father, not a husband, not a man with a voice, just someone being tolerated until the meal is over. If that image lands somewhere in your chest, stay with me. Because some of the hardest patterns to name don't come from strangers. They come from family. They come dressed in religious language. They happen in homes where the zemiras are beautiful, the table is full, and everyone outside thinks everything is fine. And when something happens often enough, and no one around you names it clearly, you can start asking a painful question. Maybe the problem is me. Slow down. That may not be the whole truth. If you're new here, welcome to Silent But Standing. My name is David. I was born and raised in New York City, and today I live in Israel. I created this channel for Jewish men who are carrying things quietly, especially inside of complicated or painful or toxic relationships, and they're still trying to stay connected to Hashem with dignity and truth. This is not about revenge, not blame, no public accusations, just clarity, chizuk, and the next right step. And I want to be very careful from the beginning. This video is not here to diagnose anyone. It is not here to accuse anyone. It is not here to decide what is happening in your private life. I don't know your situation, and I'm certainly not your Rav. I'm not your therapist. I'm not your lawyer. I'm not your doctor, and I'm not a crisis advisor. If something serious is going on in your life, speak privately with a trusted advisor, a qualified professional, or more than one, someone who understands your situation. Here, we are looking at patterns, because sometimes a man simply needs the right language. He needs to stop calling confusion emunah. He needs to stop calling disappearance and self-erasure shalom bayis. He needs to notice what is happening without becoming bitter. So let's talk about 5 habits that can become normalized in frum and traditional homes. Not because every home has them, not because every person means harm, but because these patterns can hide behind beautiful language. And if you never slow down to look at them, you may start thinking that your pain is not allowed to exist. These examples are not ranked, but they are connected. And the last one is the one many men do not see coming because it hides inside of something that looks completely holy. The first habit is correcting or embarrassing someone in front of other people, and then calling it tochacha. Tochacha is real. The Torah does command rebuke, but real tochacha is not humiliation with a Torah label. There's a pasuk in Vayikra, Perek Yud Tet, pasuk Yud Zayin. Lo tisna et achicha bilvavecha, tochiach et amitecha, velo tisa alav chet. Do not hate your brother in your heart. You shall not rebuke your fellow, and you should not bear sin because of him. Sit with that order. First, the Torah says, do not hate your brother in your heart. Then it speaks about rebuke. That matters. Real tochacha is not a release valve for irritation. It's not a performance in front of guests. And it's not a way to make someone feel small while pretending to help them grow. The Gemara in Arachim teaches that if rebuke causes a person's face to change color from shame, something has gone wrong. That should make a person very careful, very, very careful. Because when a man gets corrected publicly and repeatedly, something starts to happen inside of him. He stops offering opinions. He stops asking questions. He stops leading naturally. He starts calculating every sentence before it leaves his mouth at his own Shabbos table. He becomes quiet, invisible, erased. And from the outside, people might think he's calm, he's quiet. But inside, he might not feel calm at all. He might feel managed. There's a big difference. And maybe he explains it away. Oh, she's just passionate. They only say it because they care. That's how this family talks. It's not a big deal. Maybe. One incident might be clumsy. One sharp comment might be a mistake. But a repeated pattern deserves clarity, because the Torah does not turn embarrassment into a mitzvah just because the person doing it uses religious language. The next habit is quieter. It uses a man's own religious obligations as a lever against him. Kibbud avim is real. Honoring parents is real. Respecting family is real. Shalom bayis is real. These are not small things. A man who takes Torah seriously should feel their weight. But the Torah's values are not tools for erasing a person's voice. When guilt gets weaponized, it can sound like this. After everything we did for you, a good son wouldn't speak that way. You're going to break up this family? That is not how a Torah person behaves. You're the one making a problem. And underneath all of that, the message becomes your pain is the problem. Your voice is the problem. Your need for clarity is the problem. That is where a man can get stuck. Because he doesn't want to be disrespectful. He doesn't want to dishonor anyone. He does not want to create machloket within his family. He doesn't want to be the one who brings pain into the room or anyone's life. So he absorbs again and again and again until he starts believing that a good Jew means never saying, "This hurts." But that's not Torah strength. That is pressure wearing a clean white shirt. There's a Torah idea that helps here. David HaMelech had deep respect for Shaul HaMelech. Shaul was not a random person. He was the king of Israel. He was also David's father-in-law. David refused to raise his hand against him. But David also ran. He protected himself. He did not confuse respect with permission to be destroyed. That distinction matters. A man can honor someone and still tell the truth. A man can respect a relationship and still protect his own dignity. A man can avoid revenge without agreeing to disappear. That is not rebellion. That is clarity. Picture this. A man is getting ready for Shabbos guests. The house looks ready. The food is ready. The table is set. And just before the first guest walks in, someone pulls him aside and says, "Please don't embarrass us like you did last time." They don't give an example. There's no clear incident. It's not even a real conversation. Just an accusation, a conclusion. And then the guests walk in. And now he has to smile. He sits down at his own Shabbos table. But inside, he's running a silent loop. What did I do? When did I do it? Am I about to do it again? Should I speak less? Should I joke less? Am I supposed to stay quiet? And from the outside, everything looks normal. The guests, they enjoy the Shabbos meal. The kids think everything is fine. People leave saying, "What a beautiful Shabbos table." But he spent the whole meal feeling like one wrong sentence could become the next case against him. That kind of vagueness can be very powerful because a clear concern can be discussed. A vague accusation cannot. You can respond to facts. You can repair something specific. You can apologize for something real. But when the charge keeps changing or is never clearly named, a man gets trained to live on defense. And then people call his silence maturity. Maybe it's not maturity. Maybe it's simply exhaustion. Maybe it's fear of being misunderstood again. Maybe it's the habit of trying to keep peace while shrinking. That deserves attention, not panic, attention. Because Shalom bayis is not built by keeping one person permanently off balance. The next habit is harder to name because it does not look harsh. Sometimes it even looks loving. Warmth appears when you comply, when you say the right thing, when you agree quickly, when you don't push back, when you play the role that people expect from you. And then the warmth disappears when you have your own opinion, your own perspective on a situation. You start to articulate your own pain. You start to define your own boundaries. That can become a reward system. Maybe not always intentionally. A person might genuinely believe that they are helping you. They might think that they're trying to motivate you. They might think that they're trying to guide you and your family towards what is right. But the man receiving it, the effect can be very, very different. He starts adjusting himself constantly. Maybe if I speak softer, maybe if I help more, maybe if I explain better, maybe if I don't bring that up, maybe if I apologize faster, maybe if I stop needing so much. And then the target moves again. The thing he corrected is no longer the thing. Now it's something else. And slowly, he stops trusting that the warmth was ever stable. That does something catastrophic to a man. It teaches him to chase approval rather than to stand in truth. The Torah shows us how dangerous conditional favoritism can become. Let's take a look in Breshit, Perek Lamed Zayin Pasuk Gimel. The Torah says, "B'Yisrael ahavet Yosef mikol banav ve'asa lo ktonet pasim." Yisrael, Yaakov, loved Yosef more than all of his sons, and he made him a special coat. The Torah does not hide what happens next. The brothers saw it. The hatred grew. The family broke open. The pain lasted for years. The point is not to attack Yaakov Avinu, chas v'shalom. The point is that the Torah is honest about family systems. It does not pretend that patterns have no consequences. Love that feels unstable can shape a person. Favor that can be withdrawn can train a person to perform a certain way. And when a man spends years trying to earn basic warmth and respect and recognition, he might even forget that dignity is not supposed to be a prize that he wins by disappearing and erasing himself. The next habit is when a man brings up something real, something that happened, something that hurt, and the response shifts away from the actual issue. Why do you always do this? You're making a big deal out of nothing. That's not what happened. You are going to destroy this family. Why can't you just let things be peaceful? Let's be careful. Memory could be imperfect. People can experience the same moment differently. Not every disagreement means that somebody is lying. But if the pattern is that your memory is always dismissed, your pain is always exaggerated, and your attempt to speak calmly is always treated as the real problem, that deserves clarity. Because shalom bayis is a real Torah value. But real shalom needs emet, truth. Shalom is connected to shalem, whole, complete, not split in half. A peace that requires one person to deny what he lived through is not whole. It might be quiet, but quiet is not always peace. There is a moment in the story of Yosef that gives this language. Years after the brothers sold Yosef, years after the family lived with the story that they had created, the pressure finally hits. In Breshit, Perek Membet, Pasuk Kaf Aleph, they say, Aval ashemim anachnu al achenu, asher ra'inu tzarat nafshenu, behitchaneno elenu velo shamanu. We are guilty concerning our brother, whose distress we saw when he pleaded with us, and we didn't listen. They remembered years had passed. The family had moved on in some ways. No one was standing there forcing the confession. But the truth did not disappear. That is a serious thing. Reality does not dissolve because people stop talking about it. Pain does not vanish because the room got quiet. And a man who stops bringing things up may not have found peace. He might have simply found a way to stop getting hurt in that particular method. Those are not the same thing. And if pain stays unnamed for long enough, it often comes out somewhere else, in numbness, in anger, in distance, in davening that feels empty, in silence that slowly hardens. That is why clarity matters. Not because you need to win, because you need to stay honest with yourself. The last habit hits differently because it does not come through anger. It comes through something you love. Torah, halacha, musar, a pasuk, a phrase from a shir, a sentence someone heard once and now uses it like a hammer against you. The pattern is this. Someone selectively quotes Torah in order to control, to silence, or to shame you, but never applies the same standard to themselves. This is where a man who loves Hashem can get badly hurt. Because he doesn't just feel pressured by another person, he starts to feel pressured by the Torah itself. And that can make something go cold inside of him. Not because he wants to distance himself from Hashem, it's because Hashem's language has been used against him, weaponized against him. That is serious damage. There is a pasuk in Mishlei, Perek Vav, pasuk Kaf Gimel. Ki ner mitzvah v'torah or v'derech chayim tochachot musar. A mitzvah is a lamp, and Torah is light. And the rebukes of discipline are the way of life. Torah is supposed to bring light, not confusion, not control, not shame that makes a man smaller and smaller until he stops trusting his own neshama. That doesn't mean that Torah is always comfortable. It is not. Sometimes Torah corrects us. Sometimes it confronts us. Sometimes it asks more from us than our ego wants to give. But Torah is not supposed to be used selectively as a weapon by someone you love. The warning sign is asymmetry. The person who quotes kibbud av va'ein at you never seems to quote ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha at themselves. The person who tells you Torah demands your silence never seems to ask whether Torah demands their honesty. The person who tells you to be mevater never asks whether they are being fair. That does not automatically tell you the whole story, but it does tell you to slow down. Because Torah applied only in one direction can become a source of pressure with a holy label. And a holy label does not make the pressure holy. So here is the standing action for today. Do not make any dramatic decisions from this video. Do not go accusing anyone of anything. Do not turn one sentence here into a war at home. That is not the point. The point is clarity. Tonight, write down one sentence privately. What is the one thing I was told was Torah, peace, respect, or patience? But it left me feeling smaller instead of more connected to Hashem. One sentence. Then ask, did Torah actually say this? Or did someone need Torah to say this? Those are very different questions. And you are allowed to ask them. You are allowed to love Torah and still question how someone used Torah language as a weapon against you. You are allowed to seek Shalom bayis without erasing your own voice. You are allowed to honor people without pretending that your pain doesn't exist. You are allowed to be patient without disappearing. Familiar is not the same as holy. A pattern can be old and still need correction. A family habit can still be common and still deserve clarity. A religious phrase can sound familiar and still be misused. Naming that does not make you a bad Jew. It may be the beginning of becoming an honest one. And honesty is not the enemy of Amunah. Sometimes honesty is where Amunah finally starts breathing again. If this video resonated with you, I encourage you to let me know in the comments. No private details, no names, no stories you're not ready to share. Just comment one word: clarity, dignity, patience, shalom, or strength. Which one are you holding on to today? And if this is the kind of Torah-based chizuk you need, subscribe to Silent But Standing. This channel is for Jewish men carrying quiet battles and trying to walk through them with Hashem, with dignity, and with truth. Not revenge, not blame, not public accusations, just the next right step. You may be silent, but you are still standing.